Welcome to the Rolling Forward podcast,
a platform where we talk about all things logistics.
Leading this discussion, you've got Brett and Nathan.
And together, we share a passion for the logistics industry.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Rolling Forward.
Good morning, Nath.
We're up to number 13. Lucky number 13, the date of my birthday. And today, we welcome Kaylee and Chris to the conversation. Kaylee in the background that's going to critique us and give us some free advice and commentary. And Chris here from Onestop. So welcome, mate.
G'day, guys. Appreciate the opportunity to come on the show.
And we're very grateful that you both have travelled here for this experience with us today. And we're pretty eager to talk about all things Onestop because, you know, inside our industry, Onestop is known, across Australia, universally. It's fluently used in so many applications every single day. However, from a consumer perspective, a lot of actual importers and exporters wouldn't actually know what Onestop is.
That's right.
And the immense array of features that this company has to offer. So I'm pretty excited to dive into this. But first, we need to start with your self-introduction. So, Chris, who are you? What are you bringing to the table? Let's talk about your journey in Onestop as well, and just a bit about you.
Yeah, certainly. Look, again, guys, thanks for letting me on the show. Very interested to come here. In terms of myself, my name is Chris Harnett. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Onestop. I've been at Onestop for almost 10 years now. It'll be 10 years next year. So it's been almost a third of my life working at this company.
Yep.
Prior to that, I was at Maersk Line for about 4 or 5 years. Did a variety of roles, including a stint up here in Queensland, looking after the exporters.
Yeah, right. So that would have given you a great, field experience, leveraging into Onestop as well.
100%. I actually credit my year and a half up here in Queensland with actually teaching me the supply chain.
Yep.
Maersk was, at the time, but now they're a much broader company. They're trying to be an end-to-end logistics offering. But at the time, they're very focused on we're just going to be a shipping line and move containers on boats.
Yep.
And I came up here and I went and sat down with the meat exporter at the time. And he asked me what I knew about, road and rail. And I just looked at him with a very glazed look in my eyes. He's like, all right, you're going to go down to the Port of Brisbane. You're going to sit at the BMT for a day. You're going to go to the terminal for a day. He basically told me what to go and do.
Yeah, right.
But I immensely appreciated that because you could see there's such a wider option out there in terms of how these containers move around the world. And I was such a small piece of moving, a chilled box of beef from Brisbane to Yokohama in Japan.
Yep.
And how complicated that process is.
Yes.
So that year and a half up here working with these big companies really taught me that it's a much more niche industry, but it's a very fascinating industry about how these things get done.
Yeah.
And everything has to be harmonized together.
Yes,
so that year and a half really taught me that how do you stitch these things together? So I credit my time up here as my reason to understanding how the supply chain works today.
That's a really cool story. I like that. And, in Australia, we've got a very significant mid-export profile, like just, staying with that topic of that particular industry. So
Reefers,
that's cool. It's really cool.
And it's such a fascinating industry, particularly like up here for how much of it gets exported. Like the process of that and how much of how you need to understand that process is critical to that cargo commodity going overseas and being as valuable as it is. So using that as a microcosm of how do you move freight, really good example for anyone out there trying to learn more about the supply chain.
Yep. Wonderful. And talk us through your experiences through Onestop as well, because you've had a few positional changes.
Yeah, like I started off in 2016. I was leaving Maersk at the time because, one, it was a shipping line, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity to move beyond shipping. If I waited a couple of years, I probably could have looked more broadly, but I really wanted to learn more about the supply chain.
Yep.
And Onestop's a very unique company where it sits across the entire supply chain. So I've had weeks where I go and talk to a rail operator, I talk to a trucking company or a freight forwarder, importer, exporter, terminal, and we get to talk to all of them because they are such a broad remit of what Onestop can offer. So that was what really attracted me to come to the company.
Yep.
And since coming across in 2016, I've had a variety of roles. I've been an account manager, I've been a sales manager, been the head of sales, and now I'm currently the chief commercial officer looking after our entire external business in terms of how we engage with the industry.
Yep.
And just really trying to see how can we better push our products into people's hands to make their jobs a little bit easier. Because that's what Onestop is trying to do. How do we facilitate the movement of cargo more efficiently?
Yep. And we've definitely seen, like my observations, we've seen a shift in recent years with that intentionality. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because like I've been in this industry for 10 years and the way that Onestop is presented today appears to me different 10 years ago.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, in the past, we've always connected with these different parts of the supply chain and offered services to them. For the last, let's say, 5-7 years, we've really focused on how can we be more to that part of the supply chain. And especially in the last 3 to 4 years where our new CEO came on board and we were looking at how can we be a product-based business where we make an offer into a market to enable their jobs to be a little bit better.
Yep.
So that's really what we've been focused on the last couple of years and expanding our reach within those segments of the supply chain. Like, how can I give a solution to a freight forwarder to make their job easier?
Yes.
How can I give a depot a little more information to make their job easier? Because I'm sitting on all this really interesting data, and how can I make it consumable for them? And that's our goal. How do we make data more consumable? Because data without a means for it to be consumed is not really worth anything, right? It's just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's about improving the efficiency of the chain.
100%.
That's where the value is.
Yeah.
That's where we unlock some value. So tell us more about that process, about the getting that information, how you identify information that could be useful to other parts of the supply chain.
Certainly. I mean, look, there is a universal container tracking, if you will. Like, it's overseas, it's hit the port, it's been discharged. It's kind of known. You can look it up on most websites where the container is in the life cycle.
Yep.
But a really good example of what we're trying to do differently is you look at the empty container park and, you as a transport company, you're dropping off an empty to be returned or picking up an empty.
Yep.
What's that? A 10, 15 minute, hopefully turnaround time with the truck or a physical act occurring. But in that time, something very simple happens where, let's call it a gate out or a gate in message occurs. So when that container is gated in, you need to know because you dropped the container off.
Yes.
The freight forwarder or the importer needs to know. The container park needs to know. The shipping line needs to know. And there's a couple of other people like the port sometimes need to know on an aggregation level.
Yep.
But the interesting part there is you all need to know in very different ways. So, for example, as a transport company, you get a gate receipt, which is an email with the actual copy of you dropped this container off at this time so you can make sure that you've done your job.
Yep.
The importer needs to know it's been returned to stop the detention.
Yes.
The shipping line needs to know for a very specific message that goes into their system in a very particular sequencing time.
Yep. For stock levels as well.
100%. So it's like, cool, this physical act have occurred in 10, 15 minutes. I now need to tell 5 different parties in 5 different ways how that act has occurred.
Yep.
So it's about how do I sit there and communicate this small piece of, one container number and a timestamp to 5 different people in the most effective means possible.
Yep.
And that's kind of where we're trying to go with it and use that mentality of, it's not just, send me an email, I'll tell you what happened to the container. It's, I want to make this data available to you in the most effective means for your business. Yeah. And that's where we're trying to go with it.
Yep. I like that. And if we just stay with that for a second, what I appreciate about Onestop is the collaboration there. Mm-hmm. And if we go back years ago, just the simple gate in, gate out process was quite manual. Mm-hmm. In recent years, we've been talking about APIs and actually connecting data sources together.
Yep.
So that, for example, when we de-hire an import container, our system's updated automatically, so it's real time.
Yep.
And we can get that communication to our customer. We also make sure that we've linked that with our system so that, from an admin perspective, one, we're removing labor from the equation. Yep. So therefore, our transport allocators can focus on higher value activities. Because that doesn't remove a role. All it does is it redirects the focus.
100%.
And it just means that our system's then updated in real time straight away and it's more secure.
Mm-hmm.
On the empty export side of things, historically, driver goes to the park, driver writes down on a piece of paper, this is the container number that I've gotten against this number release, this release number.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Comes back to the comes back to the allocator and then the allocator takes it.
With one misspelling mistake of the letter and everything's all good.
And you think, multi-combinational vehicles like A-doubles and Super Bs could have, 4 pieces of containers. Mm-hmm. What could go wrong with mixing up written down paperwork and then handing it to an allocator with a messy desk?
Yep.
All sorts of things.
Yep. And if they don't look at it that day and then they, for example, update your system the next day, you could have a detention challenge or you're out of sequence.
So one of the things there, Chris, Nath's talking about labour saving at the and improving accuracy at that point. Is there any other things you're looking at where that provision of data will actually change what we do from a physical asset point of view? Like, for example, I'm thinking about the triangulation of containers, for example, where trucks don't have to move because of the use of the data.
Yep.
And the ability to coordinate that data and say, hey, that box there should be used for an export. Don't take it back to the park.
Yep, that's certainly.
Is it? Mm-hmm.
There is things we're looking at there now.
Because they're bigger gains, if you know what I mean, from the use of data.
Yeah.
Obviously, the terminal VBS systems reduce wasted time idling and a whole bunch of things like that, and probably improve efficiency. But there's lots of other low-hanging fruit that probably have some really significant cost savings and improvements. And in this, this carbon oversupplied market, ways to reduce carbon.
No, for sure. And I guess my answer to that is, look, we're looking at every way in which we can get this data into people's hands to make their jobs as efficient as possible to reduce those manual workarounds. I use the example sometimes when I talk about it, like the concept of doing a direct-to-boot pickup for shopping.
Yeah, I love it.
Normal now, right? And I was doing it the other day, and I can order everything. I can go and get it. Woolworths lets me know it's there. I can plan my time and get there as quickly as possible.
You get to park at the front of the
ready to go.
Front of the centre.
Priority parking. Yeah.
Priority parking.
You're out within 10 minutes. Like it's a pretty, you go back 10 years ago, it wasn't, there was like 30 different checkouts and you had to wait 15 minutes to get serviced.
Yes.
Now that's more common in everyday life. And I think our industry is moving towards that now, but how can we make these things more common and make these more streamlined across the entire supply chain?
Yep.
And to do that is you take the data that you've got and you share that with as many people as you can, but for the reason they need at that moment, or even prompt them like, hey, have you thought about this? Like you said, reuse, or hey, you're picking up a container at 4 o'clock, you got a booking at 2 o'clock, do you want to see if you can do a dual run?
Together.
If you're going to the depot directly after, you've got 2 bookings, can you potentially backload and, hey, grab an empty, move it over there, or something like that? So it's like, how do we take the data and push it into people's systems at the optimal time? So therefore, they still have control of their operations and they know what they want to do with them, but we're helping power it. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to power their operations as effectively as possible.
Yep.
And not just the transport, but for importers, freight forwarders, everyone we can. How can we give this information out as quickly as we can in the most accurate time we can?
Okay. I think if Kaylee had a microphone right now and a camera, she'd probably be like, guys, you've missed probably one of the fundamental questions that you should start this podcast with. So we might revert back to that, which is, can you just explain Onestop?
Yep.
I missed that at the start, and I think it's probably prudent for, again, a lot of the folk that aren't in our direct industry. However, they are a byproduct of Onestop's work.
They can be further up the chain.
Yeah. So
certainly.
So who's Onestop? What are the features of Onestop, et cetera, et cetera?
How does Onestop start, and what's the?
Yeah, certainly. Look, we've been around for over 20 years. We've been a lot of different things over the time. But what we like to say is we facilitate the movement of goods as efficiently as possible. And we do that by providing software solutions to predominantly the supply chain industry.
Yep.
And to do that is about how do you connect people, processes, technologies, and all those sort of pieces together. So it started off initially as digitizing paper-based processes. This was well and truly before my time, but something as simple as a PRA today was a piece of paper you filled out and you went to a gatehouse, you had to get out of the truck. It was a very different time.
Yeah. So or before that, I think
manual DOs, mate.
Yeah.
Running couriers around.
Runners running around town, going to lines, picking up DOs and running them out.
Get bills of lading, we're paying with checks and all these sorts.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So let's not forget checks.
Oh no, they're still going.
So does anyone in this room still have a checkbook?
We have some in the cupboard over there.
You do. You still got a NAB checkbook
for Brisbane City Council.
Yeah.
Every now and then someone still wants a check.
One supplier.
Yeah, only one supplier.
Only one supplier.
Yeah.
So that's initially where we came from. How do we digitize paper-based processes?
Yeah.
And that naturally evolved over time, where the company, and this was before my time, looked at where was there inefficiencies within the terminal spheres predominantly. So something as simple as like, your PRAs, your paper-based DOs, obviously the vehicle booking system was very prominent. But further than that, storage payments, again, was a very manual process. So they invented a payment solution to help facilitate that process. Making sure the ports were secure. They went down the path of the M6 issuing body so we can provide the cards to people to go to these ports. So if you take that the step back, the logic was, how do we facilitate that containers transaction as effectively and remove manual processes? That was the original intent of the business and still is. But as we grow and as we move into new markets, we want to take those learnings and take those concepts into new parts of the supply chain. So, it's pretty well documented. We've moved into the empty container park space.
Yep.
We have very extensive data integrations with a lot of companies now. And when we're going further with that, we're trying to, how do we integrate the data into their systems, like I said, as effectively as possible. And we're looking at some new ways in which how can we go further in the supply chain and enhance their offering by using the really interesting data we've got from those facilities.
Yep.
So that's kind of that Onestop in a nutshell.
Nice. And we pick apart some of those in particular, like the MSIC card is something that would be so foreign to many people.
Yes.
And that's a major security implementation.
Yep.
That now, like we're Queensland based, so I can't comment on all ports, but my understanding is all major
Controls
ports,
access. Controls who can go on all port.
all major ports are using the one-stop MSIC card.
Yeah,
aren't they?
We do the inductions into most of the major ports, not every single port, but most of them in the country.
Yep.
And yeah, it's a very complicated process because you are talking about a maritime secure zone, and there's regulations and there's laws and there's a lot of process. How can you facilitate that as effectively as possible?
Yep.
And the act of getting in, an MSIC card is very known within the industry. It's almost like a license to go onto a port.
Yes,
You can't get access.
It is.
Yeah.
And so no one knows about it, talks about it. You can go on New South Wales app and get a boating license, but you can't get an MSIC card because of how complicated it is. So it's a very important part of the supply chain, and it's a very important part of our business. But how can we provide those services as effectively as we can?
Yep. And for deeper context, like the MSIC card has got background police checks. And it tracks your history of a residential living for the past 10 years.
That's right.
Like there's a lot of detail in there.
Where you been, boy?
And as Brett said, it's the access into the terminal. So every time a driver goes into the terminal, they swipe every single time.
That's right.
And before, like this is part of the manifesting process too. So when an allocator is wanting to deliver
progress through the terminal as well.
Yeah, when an allocator is wanting to deliver exports in and or pick up imports, the specific driver is getting manifested against the specific prime mover. And then they've got to, swipe their identification as they go through the facility. And then there's other aspects of the terminal environment where employees, drivers or not drivers, are still using that security card to access around. And if you let that expire and don't pay attention, then you got a 2-month wait before
another one turns up.
Before the next one.
Background checks are, very extensive, like you said.
They are.
Yeah. But it's a very important part of the vehicle booking system process. I mean, a lot of people look at like a booking system as, you book a time to go somewhere, but it's a much more complicated process in the sense of how we make sure the right person is going to the right place at the right time for the right container.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how
with the right truck.
And that's kind of why our VBS is a little bit different, because we're taking that logic into how we apply this, because anyone can build an appointment module, but how do you build one which is going to facilitate that container going in or going out at the right time for all parties to get the most efficiency out of it?
Yep. And it just also means from the perspective of security too, the respective terminal knows exactly who's inside their property at any given time. They've got their ID and they've got their location.
Yep.
It's magnificent.
Exactly.
Yep. So let's talk about some of the innovations that OneStop have implemented in recent years. Like I'll just kick one off. For example, one thing that we benefit from is the APIs that OneStop has been issuing out to industry.
Yep.
And for our customers, the benefit that I see is that, one, we get notified as soon as containers are discharged. So there's that immediate update in our system. We get, direct updates from when PRAs are completed. So we're not having to manually check the system. We're not having to contact customers. We can see exactly what time it's done, and it's pulled straight into our system. And like on the container de-hire side of things, there's great integrations there too. So there's a number of things with APIs. What else is going on?
Well, I'll take a step back if that's all right.
Yep.
Because there's some really good examples of how you're using the API and to benefit your business, right? And if you really boil data down, it's not really valuable unless you find the right use case for it, like user experience in really good ways.
Yep.
And how can you consume that data as effectively as you can? So historically, we looked at it as a web screen. We have products where you can look at the data. We had traditional means of integrating that data through CSVs and traditional products there. But as we moved into the APIs and our new aggregation form of consuming data, it's how can I power the data into your system at the right time, like you just said.
Yep.
So the APIs wasn't like, it's very common. If you ask any tech company out there, APIs are like, they call us an API, like we all do it. But like in logistics industry, it's a very powerful tool. It's a very powerful tunnel to get that data in. And it allows you to almost customize when you consume that data. You can create your own business rules, like you said, the depot de-hires or PRAs. That's important to you, but it might not be important to another company down the road.
Yes.
So that was the logic of the APIs. How can we make our data available in the most, I don't want to say customizable way, but the best way for all these supply chain parties to consume it? So that was the next logical way for us to take it. And then we're taking those APIs further. We're moving into more ways to interact with data in terms of traditional data sets, like I said, container events, vessel schedules, PRAs, but different ways, different data for people to consume that we've captured. Things like ERNs, the actual release number. If I could power that into your system directly, you don't have to do those matching up. If I collected this container on this release, if I can push that into your system, and so much more, because we have all this interesting data we can consume and pass on to you. So we really want to push those APIs further into what more data can people consume and what different reasons are for it. And then eventually we're going to move into different ways of using AI for that data. So you can move beyond the traditional sense of transactional-based data consumption or operations to very predictive analytics, because, well before my time, but imagine, driving around or running a transport company without GPS. GPS completely overhauls how transport's done. AI is going to completely overhaul how the supply chain is done, because you're going to move from something that just occurred 20 minutes ago to something could occur in 5 days' time. Do you want to plan for it? So that's kind of where we see it going as well.
Yeah. Where specifically in the one-stop business do you think the AI will be the first rollout of, or are you actively using AI at the moment or no?
Look, we are certainly experimenting with AI, but we've admittedly taken a step back, saying how can we best utilize AI? Because there's a lot of things out there. Google has a way which you can upload a PDF document to create a podcast. Like, AI is used pretty amazingly for a lot of different reasons. But unless you use it for the best reason, it's just using AI for the sake of using AI. We are certainly exploring it. We are certainly seeing how we can best utilize it across our product suite, and it will be a part of our future. But I'd be remiss in saying we're going to use it for this reason, because we really want to explore the best use for it, as opposed to just doing the generic line or AI enabled like a lot of companies do. So it will be across our product suite in the future, but we're not quite ready to share what that will be yet.
We should also be clear that we are real people, and we haven't just uploaded, like France hasn't just uploaded a PDF to Google to create this podcast.
I'm actually just a figment of everyone's imagination, and this is Google talking back to you this whole time.
Please believe us. Yeah, cool. Okay. We spoke a bit about the container park, and prior to this formal discussion, you were mentioning that it took a few years where you were intentionally road mapping this and creating it so that once you could launch it, you had a great system for market, and we've been excited to see that rollout of the parks in Brisbane specifically. Talk to us about the markets you're in, as well as any other markets you see as opportunities.
Yeah, so look, we are across, like I said, multiple parts of the supply chain in Australia. The most visual these days is us entering the container park market with our one-stop modal product. But we are expanding. So we operate in New Zealand as well. We have some ports and a lot of depots over there. We're in the Philippines, in the major port of Manila, and we're also in Peru as well. So we see our opportunities to expand in those markets further, a lot of it through data products as well. But every market is so different. So the way in which we operate in Australia is so different to the way we operate they operate in New Zealand. We're 3 hours away, but it's a very different way in which they operate their businesses. So we see our opportunities to expand to different parts of the supply chain in those countries. Internationally, we've always been in contact with different countries and different ports about looking to utilize some of our services. But it's always been about the right time, in the sense of some of these ports operate very differently. There's a lot of, I'd be remiss to say it, but in terms of maturation, in terms of how the landside interface works in those ports overseas. Like I know Matt said when he was here on the podcast, it's very different overseas in terms of they focus on the ships, they don't focus on the land side, versus Australia, it's a very good balance of land side and ship operations. In other parts of the world, it's still traditional, we are here to service the ship and the containers go when they go. So we talk to ports or places overseas that really want to change that dynamic. But if they're not ready to change that dynamic, it's like trying to give a Ferrari engine to something which only really needs a small solution at the time.
Yeah, culturally, their value set's not aligned to that just yet.
Except at some point that you just can't keep expanding the port, because if you increase your dwell times, of course, your footprint's got to increase. So one way to get efficient is to put them through faster. In Australia, we do a lot with little. Because we've got it, because our cost of doing business here is so high, so we've got to be efficient. So, and
we're also an island so far away, right? And we only have so many containers coming through the country, especially when you compare, Australia to something like the East-West trade globally. We're a drop in the ocean to these shipping lines. We have to be as efficient as we can to keep the containers moving as effectively as we can to drive more volume through the country.
Keep it attractive for the lines to keep coming here.
Yes.
Have you got examples from other countries, just comparatively, on how they interface differently, like what systems they do use, or
Have most got VBS systems, for example?
A lot of the, let's call them advanced ports, do have some form of appointment modules. Now, there's this age-old version or wording or product or whatever you want to call it, called a port community system. And we are probably the closest thing to a port community system here in Australia. For those listening, a port community system has a very broad definition. There's no specific thing saying this is what a port community system is. It has to do these 5 or 6 different products or 5 or 6 different reasons. In my definition, a port community system is how do you facilitate the movement within the port effectively? And obviously that focuses on the land side and the data and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But a lot of ports overseas do have these port community systems, and appointment modules is a part of it, but I wouldn't say it's a very focused part of it. I actually did a bit of research when I was doing my university paper a couple of years ago where, for example, there's a port in Europe and you can make a booking for a day. They don't care when you come, just come that day. So you could get there at 7 a.m. and not be serviced till 8 p.m. at night, and the trucks are sitting there idle. But that's just how they want to operate.
Yeah.
And I get that, and that's how they want to facilitate that transaction. And
that's incredibly inefficient, isn't it?
That's where you really need bunk trucks, isn't it? Like,
put a bed under it and have a bit of sleep.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
Or a good internet connection to watch YouTube while they're going.
Yeah.
So, but that's just how those different terminals around the world work.
Yeah.
For example, in New Zealand, they are all adopting some forms of vehicle booking systems now, which is really good to see.
Where previously it was literally a gatehouse type.
Pretty much. Port of Auckland started in 2012, so they were the first one to bring it out, and then progressively the rest of the ports in New Zealand rolled it out and implemented vehicle booking systems. But that's still, almost 5-8 years since Australia did it.
But just to help me here, Chris, so that's an environment where, you've got certain free time to pick the container up out of the terminal, presumably import. But you're essentially just launching a truck down there, putting the truck in queue, waiting to service at a gatehouse, and then you're approved to go through, go pick up your box.
Pretty much. I mean, we were doing some work with a port in Thailand for a couple of years, and, there's a gate you got to go through first to get processed to go into the port, and there's a gate at the terminal, and then a gate out of the terminal, and you have to get out of your truck every single time. Yeah. You have to go get processed. And that terminal is doing millions of containers a year. So, and that's just the scale of how their operation works versus here in Australia. If the thought of having to get out and manually go give it a piece of paper at a gatehouse, it's antiquated because it's not efficient. It's also not really safe when you think about it.
No, it's not.
It's 1990s.
You take it to another level. So, like the standard at which we expect here in Australia across terminals is, we want to get our trucks in and processed in less than an hour.
With multiple boxes.
With multiple boxes, exactly, multiple containers. So, when we experience 2 or 3 hour wait times where the truck's in queue or you're restricted down and can't put your trucks through, industries jump up and down because that's the standard. Like the industry is grown
based on that. That's what we're everything's based on that. So
all of that, like the industry has grown to that point, technology has grown to that point, vehicle combinations have grown to that point, and pricing is all based around that component as well. Like for my mind now, just to think, there's other geographical regions where one box and
one truck,
half a day or a full shift one day
to do one box. You think about a modern European cities doing that stuff is mind blowing.
Yeah, and like our size in comparison is.
It sounds like there's lots of work for you to do, Chris.
Yeah. There's like to plan a bit more and show what Onestop could do.
Get on the plane, go.
You need to launch some tech and salespeople over and go sort it out.
Yeah,
that's remarkable. Like it just goes to show the opportunities globally are huge
for improved efficiency. Yeah. One inefficiency here, we've always been told, is some data or lack of data, lack of reliable data from shipping lines to empty parks.
Yep.
Where's that at? Is that improving?
And you're talking about like, I didn't realize I'm out of stock type thing.
No, it's more a case of the empty parks don't know what's coming at them from a discharge.
Sure.
Ultimately.
Yep.
Because they haven't uploaded the data to the parks.
Yeah, and look, that's a really good example of like, I think data sharing across the supply chain needs to get a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I get people are very concerned about sharing information at times, and look, there is security requirements, don't get me wrong, but for the betterment of the wider supply chain, we need these parties to share this data as effectively as we can. Now, we are actually in a very fortunate position in Onestop in that we actually have that data already because we're facilitating it through the EIDO process at the terminal.
Yep.
You
So-
can read the dehydrate park. Yeah.
So I can reuse that data. That's, again, a great
You can
example.
provide that for the shipping line.
I can provide it to the shipping lines, and I can provide that to the empty park. And that's one of the core offerings we put into our empty park solution.
Okay.
I can power it with the data. So you don't have to wait for these manual process integrations. I can pass that data through as soon as it occurs and give them the control.
Cool.
And that's how you can see some of these depots in Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne who are adopting, OCR technology or LPR technology, because we can give them that information to reliably know why that truck is coming there. Something so simple as, hey, this 40-foot container is allowed to go to this park. So powerful. That's a really good example of the power of using data across the supply chain.
Yeah.
And upstream, the benefit there, just to put in context to some of the listeners, is you think of, particularly major exporters or just exporters in general, them being able to know that they can get access to stock. Particularly in peak shipping times, like a grain season coming out later this year, there's going to be congestion in the network with some shippers not being able to get access to all the containers they want
In a timely fashion.
And that level of data at least gives that assurity, because sometimes in the past that hasn't been there, where it's like, well, I don't exactly know when I'm going to get it. With you knowing when a vessel's coming in and when it actually arrives, you can then start to...
Yeah, you can see where AO would come in there, Nath, because that's an overlay which say, you should have 30% of those boxes back in 2 days, 60% back in 5 days,
Yep, because the real issue for exporters is like, well, if they don't meet their quota, their LCs are compromised as well. There's massive implications.
The trade falls over, that's right. And that's a frustration for us as an exporter is that availability, that it's in the system, you book it, you go there, you got a dud run because there's no boxes.
No, for sure. And that's a great example where if we can give that data to the empty park saying, hey, in 4 days, these containers could come, prepare your workshops or whatever it is so you can let the shipping line know that the containers will be available and they can allocate their bookings of space and vessels accordingly. Again, very small thing to do, make data available, but a very powerful flow on across the supply chain.
Yeah.
Ultimately, hopefully makes Australian goods more competitive overseas because we can get them in people's hands faster.
Definitely. Like you think of it, just gives a better opportunity for transporters to actually move cargo, better opportunity for empty parks to move containers through their system, because that's what the objective is. It's not necessarily to hold cargo, it's to move them in and out. And it's better for the shipping lines because you got more exports that are actually going on vessels.
Happening.
Because if we give containers to exporters in a timely fashion early enough, there's more time to pack and get it on the boats and into other markets.
That's it. Sure. And that should be
at lower cost. At lower costs.
Yep. Yeah, wonderful. Well, probably the last question I have is: Are there any other things you want to add to the table? What does the next few years look like? Are there any other rollouts you're wanting to declare here that you're working on, or anything you're excited about?
Look, we do have some more container parks coming on board in the coming months, which we'll be excited to share when the time's right to talk about that.
Yep.
But more importantly, I just want to share, look, we are looking at how can we better integrate into the transport companies, better integrate into the freight forwarders, the importers, the exporters. So we're really excited in the coming months to start going out there and really engaging heavily in that area.
Yep.
And really understanding, a great example was that gate, the de-hire of that container. How can I give some of this data I've got to you at the best time possible? And that's really where we want to expand and look in the future and really see how can we better mobilize the landside supply chain to be as efficient as possible based on something as simple as some information around a container. So that's kind of what we really want to focus on in the future.
Cool. Well, I think that's a wrap, mate. I think that was really cool.
Yeah.
I like the it's another example of how Australia, I believe, is shining.
It's leading the field,
Leading the field with logistics, and doing so very efficiently. And a lot of your conversation, Chris, is talking about how do we actually get data in the right hands, in the right locations, to serve people.
Trucks doing dead runs.
Yep.
Freight being available earlier.
Yep. And it's all about seeing that occurs for what reason, how that information get them to the right hands.
And I think that the landside interface to reduce the amount of dwell time for boxes at portside, is a real efficiency thing.
No, for sure. And that's something we really want to focus on. And look, appreciate you guys letting me on the show. And
I think that's a real sell off. Sure, if they're not doing that, then they need to be.
Get on the bus.
I'd like the sound of that as well.
All right, I declare episode 13 done.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Well done.
Thanks for listening to our podcast, Rolling Forward.
We love sharing content for the logistics industry, so please also connect with us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.